Welcome to Keystroke Medium, the show for readers, writers, and everyone in between. I'm here today live with Clifton Slater. He is the author of the exciting new story, Superiority, which is in our space opera anthology, and I'm happy to have him on the show today and ask him all about it.
Hello, Lauren Moore. Thank
Hi.
you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're here in the flesh and without any ice cream. I can't believe it.
I forego the chips and the ice cream and all the sprinkles today. I had some coffee earlier, but I didn't want to have too much because I use a stand-up desk, so I didn't want to start bouncing out of frame.
The sacrifices you make for
Yes.
the show and the audience, giving up the ice cream.
It is.
Oh.
So this anthology is a monster. This is so cool. First of all, I boosted the anthology on my author page, of my book page. And I have to give you a quick rundown. Since the 12th, when it went live, we've had 1,103 people reached, but 171 people liked it, which is a 15.5% of exposure to likes. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
And from I use fuzzy math a lot because I was in sales. So we did a lot of salesy math. One of the things is at 15.5 at 171 people, that 6 to 8% will buy. So real fuzzy. That's about 12 sales, which is about 47.88 in sales. And I've spent $18.47. So we're running about 1.8% ratio of sales to cost for advertising. So the anthology itself, people seem to really are excited about it, and I'm excited to be part of that. So
yay! Well, I was so happy to read your story, and I loved it right from the first line. It hooked me and got me in, and I'm really pleased that all of this has come together. This is months of work, months of people excited about the anthology and submitting their stories and going through them, and then we edited together. The authors gave 110%, editing their stories and getting it perfect. And Josh Hayes, he did so much work, organizing this whole thing and formatting it and then getting it up on Amazon and getting it to the audience. And it was just a real team effort. So I'm so excited to have you on the team. And now to get to ask you about your writing and your background.
Sure.
I noticed that on your bio it said that you are a military adventure author and that you write historical military stories as well as science fiction stories. Where did that interest in the military come from?
Well, I was in the Marine Corps. I was in Vietnam, 68 through 69. Yes, I was a combat veteran. I do have a Purple Heart. Nothing fancy. I was just a shooter.
Thank you for your service.
No Rambo. Thank you. No Rambo, no nothing. I just did my job. I humped the bush and did what thousands of us did. And guess what? We're not crazy. We're not insane. We're okay. We're okay to be around. We're safe around kids and little children, animals and stuff. Only because I do that. I say that because so much of TV movies always want to go for the crazy veteran, Yes, he was in combat, so he's out of his mind. Get out of here. It's the prime of your life, you get over it. But that really did give me an interest in military. And it gave me an interest in history. Plus, I already had an interest in science. So I ended up being Amazon's algorithm's worst nightmare. I'm writing historical fiction. I'm the 400th or 480, 350, depending on if I put a book out, historical fiction novelist for Kindles. But I'm also, and this is fun since the and I'm going to talk about this. This is the best part about the anthology is my ranking for my sci-fi. I went from this 1,699th ranked on Amazon to 1,062, and that's only been, but this is the 16th, and it came out on the 10th. So I'm getting a boost from me, and I haven't put a book out. All I did was do a short story. So I'm pretty pumped about this.
We're creeping up there.
Yeah. So
I love that. To go back to Vietnam real quick, how long were you over there?
13 months. The Marine Corps
13 months?
Marine Corps tour was 13 months there. And that was my war. God bless them. I never had to attack a machine gun nest like they did in World War II. And like the young guys today and women today that do a tour, come home, and then go back again. Everybody's war is different.
Right.
Mine was jungle, and I'm good with that.
Right.
But what scares me would be the desert or World War II.
Yeah.
So, hats off, big salute to the people that are serving now and going through that stuff.
How did that later come into your writing, or like fuel your writing, inspire your writing?
My writing, like my education, was, wait a minute, left, right. You taught me this earlier. There we are. My writing, like my education, was put on hold for a lot of years. I have a slight learning disability. I can't spell. Spelling for me is so hard. People go, well, just write it and go back and fix it later. Stop. I spell things differently each time. And the more creative I'm being, the more deeper I'm into the story, the worse my spelling. To the point of, to go back and fix it takes longer. But they have spell check. But I also discovered Excel spreadsheets. I keep a spreadsheet with all the names, all the places, all the words I have trouble spelling. And as I'm writing, I just naturally flip over to my Excel spreadsheet. I copy and paste the name. And if I have a scene, I know that a bunch of people with the same name, are going to be over and over again.
Right.
I'll put those on the bottom of my worksheet so that I just cut and paste. And cutting and pasting to me is, you don't have to keep the story and keep moving. So anybody that has that sort of odd disability where they just can't spell, words have a lot of meaning to me, but they do not have any kind of structure when I try to spell them when I'm thinking, when I'm being creative.
Yeah. So you found a tool that works for you, and you're kind of working at that, instead of having to remember all the spelling. Use a spreadsheet. Yeah, memory is tough for me too. So I have piles of Post-its on the other side of that screen on my desk, and if I need to remember something, I write it down. I don't even try. Write it down, slap it on the desk, and then I've got all these Post-its all over. Which you can.
Yeah, you can find a way to be creative and to solve and to live your passion. But you got to find workarounds for whether it's time, whether it's family, whatever your problem is. Everybody has them. I'm not unique. There are people that have it. But the thing is to sit down and focus and find out what are you passionate about? And if you're passionate about history and science, you're going to have a problem with the algorithms on Amazon. and that's where I ended up. But here's the weird thing. I was cycling between writing a science fiction book and writing my historical fiction, back and forth. Both are military, both are action adventure. I like to say that the science has to be science before it can be part of the fiction, and history has to be historical before it can be part of the story. So between those two, I try very hard. So I was bouncing back and forth. I was making a pretty good living. And then, of course, all the gurus said, oh, no, you should only write one thing and go with that one.
Right.
So I did. So I went, okay, this year I'm going to focus just on my historical fiction. Because my character, Lero, he's a Roman legion in the mid-Republic period, not in the Empire. And I have a lot of trouble with that because people expect it to be this uniformed Roman legion everybody sees in the movie. It's not. It's a little more messier. The legions were only authorized for a year. They were led by one of the co-councils of the governors of Rome. So they didn't have an emperor. They didn't have a full-time standing legion that did war. So I focused on that one. I'm almost finished with the 10th book in that series. And I let my sci-fi kind of go because I wanted to focus on one, because all the gurus say, well, you should focus on one. You should not be bouncing around. Well, here's my problem. My science fiction people will read my historical fiction. My historical fiction people are a little more purist. They don't necessarily want to read the sci-fi. So what happens, my income dropped. So now I would say, okay, this anthology really helps because I was going back to write more and more science fiction. And now I'm going to do that because I love them both.
You're not unique. A lot of readers like multiple genres, and a lot of authors are drawn to multiple genres too. But with the Amazon algorithm, there's some advice about like using a pen name. However, then you'd have like 2 separate author accounts and 2 separate names to run. And so have you thought about that? And why'd you decide to keep it all? I think you kept it all under one name, right?
I did. Exactly. Yeah. I have a core readership. They're not huge, but a core readership that will read everything I write. But bless them. I love them to death. And I don't know them all, but I know a number of them. And they will read everything I write. And there's a flow. Like I said, the historical fiction is enough adventure. It's sword and sandals when you come right down to it, which is very close to fantasy. So my science fiction readers will read the historical fiction because to them it's fantasy. And that's great. I mean, that's the way it's written, to be fun. It's historical adventure more than anything else. And it's also guy fiction. Not that women, because I have a lot of female readers, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of women readers. But it's written for me when I was 14 years old, you know? It is swords and it's men rough, and I wanted cussing, but I wasn't comfortable writing curse words in my books. So I gone out and I got a whole collection of cursing in Latin. The words mean the same, and if you follow along, you know what they're saying. It's just Latin. It's not English cursing. So it helps me.
We had Rick Partlow on the pen name question. He wrote, "You don't need 2 separate author accounts to have a pen name, just 2 author pages."
Exactly. Yeah, you can do. All you have to do is tell Amazon that this book is written by this author, and that could be one of your pen names. And it's not hard because and deep inside of Amazon, your financials are all under your name. For your bank account and your name. So that's just what's public would be the 2 separate ones. Whereas inside they were both feed to the business name.
Is there a thought though that if you publish under 2 separate author pages that maybe your audience won't realize, like they might know one author page, but they might not realize the other one's you too, and they might not.
Exactly. And one of the reasons I kept it under one name was this. I want the writer to be J. Clifton Slater. I did not want to be 2 different people or try to be 2 different people. And I'm okay with it messes the algorithms up a little bit. I make a pretty good living doing this. And could I make a lot more if I separate them? Sure, probably. But do I need to make a whole lot more? I'm still growing. I'm still learning, and I'm still taking my business from where I am. And 4 years ago, I was working full time for a marketing firm. And here I am 4 years later. In the last 2 years, I've made enough money that I don't have to have another job. I work in my little office. Not much going on. It's just me in the office and my dog sleeping on the floor. And I'm loving life. I'm loving my commute is from my coffee pot in the kitchen down the hall to my writing room.
I love that. I usually have my coffee machine set up in the back. Like I wake up, roll out of bed, hit start, and then go right to editing or writing or whatever I'm doing that morning, usually editing. But I love that. How did you transition from your career to going full time?
I had worked as a sales manager in radio for a lot of years. And when you're a sales manager in radio with a staff of 12 to 15 people, you're going to spend hours. You're going to be in there early. You're going to be in there late. You're going to be answering calls. You're going to go to promotions to make sure they're going okay for clients on Saturday and Sunday. So it really is an all-encompassing job. Well, I changed 6 years ago, to a marketing firm. And I didn't have a staff. And all of a sudden it was me. And I had my nights and my weekends free. And I was driving my wife crazy. She wasn't used to me being home that much.
Right.
She said, "You're driving me nuts," because I'm walking around going, "Hey, let's do this. What are you doing? What are you reading? What are you?" She's like, "Stop it. Leave me alone." Said, "Look, you always wanted to write a book. Write a book." Well, I had over the years written situations, character studies, background on locations, all of it. I had, I don't know, 2,600 typed pages of nothing because there was no story connecting any of it. It was just me, ideas. So well, let me write that down. So I sat down and I said, let me see if I can't write a book. And the first thing I did was I wrote in first person because I knew that that would prevent me from doing that thing of going all over the place. Like, you know, when you first start, you want to mention everything. So
Sure.
I ended up writing 2 books, of 100,000 word books each. And that's my Galactic Council Realm series. I actually ended that at 4 books. But in the meantime, I found Alero in my historical fiction. So I wrote him. And when I started writing him, then I wrote Warlock, who's my, I just love her. She's my space marine with a bionic eye, which gets me into my research because when you're writing about a bionic eye, what does it do? So I had to do a lot of studying on the different sensors. One of my favorite is called the Heller's organ. The Heller's organ is what ticks use. It detects the ammonia in your skin, or is it the carbon dioxide in your breath? I always mess that up.
Rick Partlow, what is it?
Yeah, Rick, what do you got, baby? Anyway, what happens is the ticks, that's how they can detect when a mammal's going by. Wow. So when you're in the woods, and you're just standing there, the ticks are sensing you and moving in on you as you just stand there. So it's kind of freaky, but it's one of the things I gave her in her eye so that she can actually act like a human lie detector.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So I love my girl. I need to get back and write another one of Warlock books. So like I said, I do go from one to the other. You know, it was funny the other day, Kayleen, who I love, she's just amazing. She was saying when she writes, she visualizes a movie. Right. And so she sees the movie and she reports on the movie. I'm more immersive. To me, I am in the story. I'm like this weird character in the middle of these scenes. So before I can write, I have to think of what was the smell? What's the weather like? Are the characters wet? Or are they dry? What are they wearing? I have virtually immersed myself, and I can't write a word until in my head I've sunken into that world, into that scene. And then, and here's the issue, then I only report on what's important because I have so much more of that scene that I'm in. Like I could literally walk around the room and report on a vase on a wall or on somebody's shoes. So there's a whole lot of things that I'm seeing in my head, but it's what I pick out to put in a story. That's what becomes important.
And is that where writing in first person helps you to lock on to what is important and what to leave out and what the audience to know and what they don't?
The first person was the first series of books. After that, I went to the third person. Because the first person, if there's something going on around the corner, your character can't know it. Your readers can't know it. And I wrote like that so that because I know there's things around the corner in my head. I didn't want to mention it. So my character had to, and it was from every book I write, I try to do something I shouldn't be writing, like a trial scene. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about law. Now, I've studied the tablets, which was in ancient Rome, was their basis for their law. But most of it was agrarian society, so most of the laws were more about property and things like that. So you take that kind of law, and then you let it cook in your brain, and you try to write a trial scene. So, like I said, every book. So once I was satisfied, I would not peek behind the curtain unnecessarily in the books. That's when I went to third person for my other books. So it's only the first series is first person.
Now, where did the idea for Superiority come from?
Superiority.
It's talking about persons and characters. Your characters are kind of persons, but kind of not.
There's a mixture of characters. The thing started with the dream. The Marshal, Sophia Blue, popped in my head while I was trying to sleep. by 3:30 in the morning after I got up, she demanded notes. She said, "You will not go back to sleep without making notes on me and making notes on the world I patrol." So that all's there. And then I went back to bed and I got up and I let it cook for a day in my head. And then I started writing it. And it just all, and there's a madness to it that I really enjoyed writing, because there's all these intellects that are running around. And part of the things about it that got me was the sense that humans have humility. We've been punched in the face in a fight or kicked in the gut by life. So we have a little humility in us. We kind of know that, we've got to get along with other people. Well, what happens when we go out there into space and we have machines to help us survive in that environment? And then what if we run into aliens? What if there are other civilizations out there? Are they going to have the humility we have? So those two things kind of twisted around in my head when I was coming up with Sophia's world that she was working in, and then what her mission was. And her mission changed when I was writing it from where I started to what it was. About 10 times. Because I had her start, and then I had to go back and have her restart, because it kept having these false starts until finally it hit me what she should be doing. And then
your story has a couple of twists and surprises. And in that vein, we actually have a surprise for you, Tim.
What?
There's a surprise coming. The surprise is coming. That's a cue. Okay.
It's like Christmas morning.
Cue the surprise.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you
surprise.
a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Where's the surprise?
The tidings we bring to you and your friends.
I've got to message the surprise.
Where's our surprise?
Oh, there she is.
Oh, wait, Kayleen. Lean in, girl. Lean into that. There you go.
Hello.
Kayleen's one of those people, you can see her intelligence on her forehead. And when I first saw her on camera, she was way back here, and she go, I guess, maybe. And I'm like, oh, these two ladies are so true, so dynamic. I need to get them both in front of the cameras perfectly. And you do great. Good morning.
Thank you.
So Jay, we knew a couple of things. We knew that you love Kayleen like we all do. And we knew how much you love Kayleen's story time. So we thought, would it be wonderful to combine those two, bring her on the show to read your story to the audience, or at least the first opening bit?
You know what one of my fears were that we would be doing this interview while she was doing her story time, and I wouldn't be there live when she was doing it. So I'm so glad to know I'm not missing it.
Now you get to be super live.
Double live.
All right, and with that transition, welcome to an unexpected Kayleen Storytime, featured on J. Clifton Slater's Farthest Reach interview. And with that, I'm going to read the first bit of opening of Superiority, The Incident, Chapter 1. Crunch, crunch, crunch. 3 spiked barriers fell in rhythm and lifted in turn. They were designed to stab and eliminate vermin crawling over or through the crushed ore. Adding to Sophia Blue's troubles, the falling points worked on sentient beings as well as pests. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Marshal Sophia Blue didn't start the day with the goal of scampering over crunched ore and dodging spikes. The morning began with a murder investigation, then tumbled downhill from there. Literally downhill. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The marshal braced, preparing to roll down the incline and sandwich her body between the undulating spiked gates. This was not the way Sophia expected the day to unfold when the call came in. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The soft buzzing alerted the marshal to an incoming voice communication. Sophia Blue, she answered. I know who I'm calling, Blue, Francis stated. Francis, is this a social call, or is there an issue? Sophia joked. In all the orbits she had known Francis, none of the calls had been to express niceties or merely pass the time. Not humorous, Blue. There are 2 issues, one immediate and the other for later, but in reverse order for their magnitude of importance. I assume one concerns me, Let me guess. The immediate one? One of our emotional species has expired in the raw ore intake section. Statistically, there's a 60% likelihood of it being an industrial accident. However, in light of the second issue, I need the incident investigated. You've called the correct division, Sophia announced. As the industrial station's only law enforcement entity, if Francis needed a detective, someone to break up a brawl, a food fight, or remove vermin, the call came to Marshal Blue. She unplugged the news feed, pulled on her helmet, and strapped on an eliminator. Then she belted on the big iron pistol because a trip to the industrial area of the platform might require heavier weaponry. I'm on the way, she informed Francis. Do you want to tell me the other thing, or are you going to keep me in suspense? Truthfully, I never considered the possibility that you had the capacity for uncertainty or confusion, Francis commented. I'm neither, just curious. The subject is in flux, Francis remarked. Once it has been properly scheduled, you will receive the information if you are among the need-to-know personnel. Point of logic, Francis. If the second issue impacts my investigation, Sophia explained, shouldn't your marshal know sooner than the corporate pecking order allows? Eating, nibbling, poking order? You need to get out more, Francis. Pecking order is the weighted judgment of who should have access to the information. I will check to see if it's germane to your investigation. That's not really your decision, Francis. Expound on the decision process. I'm the investigator. I should decide if it's important to the examination and has a bearing on the final report. I am, after all, the marshal. Point taken. I will advise. Then Francis, as happened every time they communicated, was gone. No fare thee well or have a nice day. Just gone. Do you want me to keep going?
I like it. I don't.
My thing. Whoop. Block up my thing. Okay, sorry. I will continue to the next part. Why not? We're here. Let's do it. The corridor outside the marshal's office was empty of emotionals and bots. Not unusual considering the enormous industrial station was mostly automated. The entire population of the space station consisted of emotional species for flexibility of process, logical AIs for consistency of production, and smart bots for maintenance. All of them spread across a moon-sized industrial station, and all kept in order and at peace by Sophia Blue. A bug, one of the pests, fell out of a vent. It landed on its shell, flipped over with the help of little legs, and scurried down the corridor. Before her eliminator cleared the holster, a small mammal with pronounced fangs and a long tail leapt from the vent shaft and gave chase. 2 for 1, Sophia whispered while aligning the laser sight. It must be my lucky day. Puff, puff. 2 perfect shots, and she holstered the eliminator. A cabinet cover dropped from the wall, and a wheeled box rolled down the ramp. It spun on the deck and headed for the corpses. Janitor Bot 55, why wasn't this infestation reported? She questioned the smart bot. It stopped, wheeled around, and waved antennae in the marshal's direction. A quick check on a meter showed the wireless in this section registered as adequate for communications. The only reason the smart bot turned around had to be an itch for additional input. This unit had life forms under surveillance. Before its demise, the insect occupied itself by nibbling on the insulation of the fiber optic cables. The mammal gnawed on the insulation at the fiber optic booster box, Bot 55 replied. The coating was not breached by the insect. The depth of gnawing did not exceed the coating at the cable interchange. The pests were amused by the activity. Sophia's first thought was a snarky, "Are you a cable maintenance bot to judge the amount of damage?" Then caution ruled. The bot was possibly a data hog. If so, she knew to tread carefully. Why didn't you report the infestation? Sophia asked, working to keep her temper and voice under control. Complex machines and mechanisms on the industrial station required adjustments to keep them calibrated, worn parts replaced, and bearings greased to keep them functioning. To provide for proactive maintenance rather than reactive, All the bots had small processors and rudimentary cognitive abilities. The system worked within parameters for the first 200 years of its existence. Issues started after decades of upgrades to improve performance. The smart bots got interested in their surroundings and attempted to interact with the emotional species and the pests. The vermin never replied to the smart bots. However, the emotionals did. And unfortunately, sentient beings were often cruel to entities without hearts. The emotionals on the station found the antics of the smart bots and their stinted conversations interesting. Both became the basis for unkind behavior. For 50 years, the crews of emotionals that rotated to the station made sport of the bots. But over time, the semi-intelligent smart bots became more self-aware and began to take offense at the crude language and rude jokes. Trouble started when a couple vomited the substances in their stomachs on the floor of a public space. As soon as the janitor bot finished cleaning and polishing the floor, the couple did it again. Sometime during their snickering, the bot went into its charging compartment, locked itself in, and refused to come out. With the trash, rubbish, and stains of digestive bile piling up, Marshal Blue was called in to negotiate peace and get the janitor bot out of the cabinet and back to cleaning. They reached an agreement after a day of circular arguments and, what felt like to Sophia, a gigabyte of data from a thesaurus program. But soon after reaching the accord, the cost of the resolution was rapidly swelled. When the communications bot she called in realized a janitor bot was getting a personal news feed wire, all the other smart bots on the station demanded one as well. After consulting with Francis, it was decided to provide group news hubs in each sector. Robotic ergonomics called the issue stimulus depravity syndrome. Emotionals had the ability to play, raise their young, debate with each other, and remember various facts. These abilities gave them immunity to the syndrome. AIs, with the ability for process learning, had a little less resistance than the sentient species, and, to everyone's surprise, smart bots were the most susceptible to SDS. Their inability to use and remember the input made them ravenous, bottomless data holes. The Regurgitate study was the first recorded episode. For a time, the station hosted groups of RE investigators. They arrived, ran tests, created excitement, and eventually left. Left Marshal Blue with an industrial station full of pampered, data-hungry smart bots. She didn't want the conversation with Bot 55 to escalate into something that required a solution. Keeping it simple, Sophia relied on non-negotiable rules. "Let me quote the regulations for clarity," she started to say. "Clarity? Understanding, precision, knowledge." "Knowledge, yes, inform me, Marshal," requested Bot 55. "Units will report infestations or any life forms located outside of authorized areas. Why did you not report the infestation?" "I was isolated in my recharging compartment. The amusement of the insect and mammal provided stimuli for my sensors. Permission to go about my duties, Marshal." "Granted," she said. Even without a satisfying answer, relief flooded Sophia. When the conversation ended without the need for an argument or a resolution. Flaps opened in the bot's sides while it rotated to face the corpses of the insect and mammal. As the janitor bot rolled away, a scoop, broom, disinfectant dispensing nozzle, and a vacuum tube all emerged from compartments. Sophia had an accident to investigate, and Francis wouldn't be pleased with this delay. While passing Bot 55, she noticed its antennae swung in her direction. Ignoring the offer for more input in exchange, Marshal Blue continued to the elevators. And with that, you will have to go get Farthest Reach to know exactly what this murder and these bots are all about.
Yay!
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Christmas came early this year.
Aw. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm going to leave you back to your interview. You rock it. No, you're over here. You rock it. You already know you're rocking it. Both of you rock it together. Kayleen out.
Thank you, Kayleen.
Oh, that was great. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for joining us today for this lunch break, this Meet J. Clifton Slater. Now we know the man behind the ice cream.
That's me. The ice cream.
Every Monday and Thursday night. Are you gonna? So today is Monday. Are you gonna have some tonight?
Yeah. I have some heavy writing to do, and I've got my last big adventure for this last book in my the series, so I can get this one done. And I go, hey, I have a request for you at a later show.
Okay.
Magic systems. I'm a systems guy. My science has systems. My history has systems. It's ancient technology has systems. I want to write a fantasy book, and I want to put magic in it. So I've been exploring. I have one in my mind I've kind of built up.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to do a show on magic systems.
Yes. That is really good. Yeah, we've had that request a few times, and we have a blog post on our website about world building, and I think it has to do with magic systems as well. It might even be about magic systems. I have to check. That's there, and that's one of our most popular posts. So I know you're not the only one who does that. We have a lore master editor coming on in, I think, February.
Good.
We'll need to get someone who's an expert in building these magic systems. That's a good idea. I like it.
Yeah. That was something I've been reading. I was watching Brandon Sanderson's videos about his 3 rules for systems and all of that. So the whole thing. Like I said, I'm a science and a history guy. So to do magic, I need to have everything put in a place where I could work with it to tell the story.
That's good. Okay, I'm thinking of possible guests. That's good. I love this. All right.
Awesomeness.
Well, thank you, Jay. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your time and your stories with us.
Thank you. And I want to hear you say the closing. I love you guys.
Oh man. Well, Kayleen already hung up, but I think it's thank you for joining us, and hit the subscribe button and like and share. And we love you guys. And join us next time tonight for some reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium.
Yes. I love it. Thank you.